Hi Stamp friends, this is Susan Smith with Stamp Creatively, and I've been playing with my pre-order like I'm supposed to. So Stampin' Up! Gives us some pre-order product, and I like to try to spend my time creating it with it before I can get a hold of all the new catalog stuff, because then my mind gets blown. So I started off, I pulled out my In Good Taste Designer Series paper, and this is, it's basic gray, early espresso, gray granite, night of navy, petal pink, rococo rose, smoky slate, very vanilla, and whisper white. So it's a very neutral color pack. It's a super pack, so it's got 24 sheets, 12 designs, 2 of each, and it's $21 when you get this paper. But I wanted to show you what we're working with here. I mean, that's a lot of good paper with a lot of great, really neutral patterns. So I pulled it out, decided I was going to work with it, but then I pulled out the stamp sets that we got in the pre-order, trying to decide which one stamp set I wanted to use with this. Do you see how you could just live in this happy place for a really long time? So I wanted to decide what I wanted to use with it, and I decided to use the birds. So I'm going to use this set, which is called Birds and Branches. I'm going to use the dies that are Birds and More, and I'm going to show you what I created with them. So I went through and ran some of my things through my dies because I wanted to see kind of how they cut. I stamped a bird because I wasn't sure kind of how that was going to work. I used my scrap. Let me see if I can put this under here so you can see it a little bit better. Wait, that one's messy. We'll put a piece of grid paper under here so you can see it a little bit better. On my white top. There you go. So this is my scrap from the inside of the center. So after I ran that through, I had some scrap. So that's what I put my bird on. And then ran it back through because the dies have the birds you can cut out. The dies have a lot in them. There's the nest. There's the, doesn't tell me how many dies are in it. Oh yes, it does. There's 16. So there's 16 different dies in it. So I did my bird this way. I did, because it's photopolymer, I can see straight down. So I did my outside of my bird, and I did that in espresso. And then I did a crumb cake inside. That's a little off. Let's turn it over. Oh, I'm using shimmering white. There's my outside. There's my inside. It's still a little off on the tail, but I'm okay with that. And then this was the wing, and I went with a crushed curry wing, because that looks like birds that come to my house. We live out in the woods, so we get a lot of birds. That's why I decided I would use the woods and the birds together. Okay, so let me show you. I kind of assembled some cards, and I'm going to show you how I did them really quickly. Oh, here's my bird nest. And I'll show you how I did the bird nest. So I did my bird nest, and I wanted it a little bit darker around the edges. It felt like it was still a little, so I took my sponge. So I stamped it in the crumb cake, and then I'm saying crumb cake. Nope. It's soft suede. I think my first bird I did in crumb cake, and then I pulled out soft suede this time. But I used the espresso just to go around the outside edges, just to kind of make sure that it just looked too stark on the edges for the nest. And here's the first card I did. I used the brick pattern, and I went around the outside of my nest. There's my bird in the colors I've shown you. I just made some bows and put some linen thread under there because nests in the wood kind of look like that. They kind of have pieces sticking out. And then this is the branches, and I'll show you how I did the branches. I ran this branch through the Big Shot, and I took dark crumb cake and dark soft suede. I used a little bit of the light So Saffron. I used the light Old Olive. And then I used the light Seafoam. Oh, this is mint. That'll do. And what I did was I went over and did this on the little berries. And I wanted 2 shades on my branches. So I went through and hit it with the darker one. And I went up through the center of my leaves. It just looked better. And so I went over with that. And then I did this. So I had some variation to my branches. It looked a little bit more like a branch to me. Okay, so after I did that, I did my leaves, and I kind of did the same thing. I took my olive, and I just kind of did that on my leaves, and you don't need to see me do every leaf. And then I just went over it and blended it with a different shade of green. And again, this is the mint. I used the Seafoam before. It doesn't really matter. You're just trying to get some variation in your leaf. And then I cut this branch apart, and that's what I wove through my bird's nest. So I put a little piece coming out here. I put a little piece out here. I put the big branch coming up that way. And then I took these fun InColor candy dots and put the yellows on the berries. Okay, so that's one. And again, I love the pattern of the background. I love that designer series paper. Okay, here's the second one. And I'll show you how I did this. Again, not hard. Same bird, stamped the bird the same way, stamped the smile, and then used that new little 6-way punch. And I don't have that out here, but I'll show you that in another video. It's fantastic. Okay, so what I did here was I ran this through, and I used this piece. And it doesn't cut it all the way out. It just gives you a border. Then I took my gold foil paper, and I ran it through, and then I textured it with this Tasteful Textile new embossing folder, which is fabulous. And it gives that textured look, so I could layer this. So I layered this underneath of it. I ended up with this little extra strip. So I took that extra strip and used it under here. So see, it's just tucked under there. I did the same thing with this die. This die punches out. It's fantastic. I trimmed it. Once I ran it through the Big Shot, I trimmed it to get it so it was a little more square on my paper. And then after I did this, I went through and used this little trio, the detailed trio punch, rounded my corners, and then I ran it through that Tasteful Textile embossing folder again. So here you go. 2 fun cards with the birds and more, the birds and branches, and the new Good Taste Designer Series paper. I don't have all my words right. I have to look them up every time. So I'll put picture at the front. And thanks for joining me. Have a good one. Bye.